Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to our work session for the Monroe City Council, December 7th. Let the record reflect that all members of the council are present tonight, and we will move straight to the city administrator update, please. Mr. Probst?
Thank you, Mayor. We have been very, very, very busy here with all sorts of interest in the commercial, residential, and industrial prospect world, just trying to manage all the chaos that comes with it. So staff has dedicated a lot of time in all aspects. I think every department's been involved in dealing with some of that. So that's just a lot of what's been going on the day-to-day. Today we were awarded the right-of-way grant for the TAP project. That's the Transportation's Alternative Project out here on North Broad, East Highland, North Lumpkin stretch. I know it's one of those long anticipated projects that will eventually get here, but that's $400,000 we were awarded for that right-of-way acquisition. As you know, we were previously awarded the engineering, and that's pretty much completed now. So now we move into that acquisition. Then we'll move into applying for, and most likely will be awarded construction funding in the next phase. That's phase 3. That's a couple $1 million project in construction at a minimum, but unfortunately that won't be until 2025 when we're actually turning dirt and laying some new sidewalk out there. Additionally, we're getting a lot of interest in the Blaine Station development that you guys approved as a master plan concept and rezone last month. We haven't put it out there in a formal RFP yet. We'll do that in first quarter of next year. That's when we stand to get a lot more traction. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and look at adding some of the new signage at the police department that fits what you all approved. And we'll finish the roof replacement and the facade on the old 1970s shopping center right now. If you drive by, it's already been painted. It's white. The roof just hasn't been completed, and the facade hasn't come off yet to be replaced. So that's coming. The Milner Aycock building, old police department, we're working on some water damage repairs. Then we're going to put it back out for RFP. Unfortunately, something happened during the transition and kind of filled up with water and a little bit of mold. So we're remediating that right now. It's nothing too significant, but we want it to show its best when we put it out there. Again, that'll probably go in Q1 for that RFP to be re-released. Downtown Green as well, we'll put that out probably in late Q1 for bid. Once all the engineering is fully finalized, we're pretty much there. Obviously, we had our groundbreaking, which was phenomenal. And in the meantime, our utility departments will be working out there, primarily electric, putting in the underground. So you'll see some dirt moving out there in the next few months with electric. And additionally, staff is working on a host of plans, whether it be, as we'll kick off tonight, the comprehensive plan, parks master plan, we're still working in the background, and water hydrology, so on and so forth. But we're putting together a pretty robust series of plans. Jeremiah's working with streets as well on some pavement grading, some new indices there. So a lot of exciting stuff will be coming together in 2022, especially by mid-year.
Not very busy.
Not busy.
Are there any questions for Mr. Probst?
Yes, ma'am. It is open. It is open. Yes.
Yeah, November 1st. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, moving to Central Services, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, sir. On the Plaza Shopping Center, we are in a delay waiting on the metal cap that goes between the roof and the facade. So like everything else, it's a little bit on the slow side, but the exterior has been painted. We picked out the lighting that goes under this afternoon, and that should be getting pretty close. They're confident, though, they should be done by the end of the year, minus that little cap piece that goes. That's what it looks like it's laying over the top. And then the old PD, we actually did get the report back, and it was very low levels, like Logan said, but at this point, we're kind of going through the whole, I guess the word would be the remediation of getting that repaired and then get everything back out for bid. But moving on, we had our, our almost final event of the Bicentennial Week, our cleanup event on Saturday. We had about a dozen volunteers between city staff and citizens come in and help us out. We were a little over 800 pounds in what we picked up, and that is not counting Mr. Gregory's trailer load of tires that he found at the end of one of the streets that had been dumped out. So
I demand a
technically he
recount.
wins, but I think it's with an asterisk in the amount that was picked up. But we appreciate that, and we appreciate the people that came out. Our CDBG project is ongoing. It's moving along slowly. A lot of pipe having to go in the ground. Just takes time, tight right-of-ways. I'd already hit that. And then the one thing I wanted to go over, and Logan was hitting on a lot of stuff, what we've got coming up, is to kind of go down the project list real quick. And I'm not going to go into detail on all these, but 2021's been a busy year for everybody. Just from essential services, parks, buildings and grounds, a little bit of streets mixed in for me, a little bit of solid waste, and they'll hit that later. We've paved our airport runway. We put up sunshades in the park. The fire department memorial garden was repaired that was hit and damaged. We put in a badge pass door system there. As I'd mentioned, our CDBG 2020 that's ongoing will go into next year. Sidewalk repair project, I think we replaced and rehabbed about 1,200 feet of sidewalks in 2021. We redid the Murray lot over here. Our gate at the utility warehouse was redone. Matthews Park Phase 1 was completed. Phase 2 has began. Our City Hall lighting, everything's been redone on the interior of the building. Pilot Park has had drainage, retaining wall, mulch, re-put and fixed. Parks Master Plan, Logan mentioned, our stormwater infrastructure. We've done several projects over the year in that. Repaved South Madison, finished that grant job. Our terminal building, I had a conference call this morning, will go out to bid before the end of the year. So that's a $500,000 project that's gonna hit us next year, and I think will be a great addition to our airport. Our gateway entrance signage where we did at Bojangles where Charlotte Rowell comes off of 11. The landscaping's been done. Now that we have the new logo, we can proceed with that signage as you come into the city. Most of that was grant funded. Our GPS replacement of vehicles, the solid waste transfer station has taken huge strides. I mean, it's pretty much completely upgraded at this point. Along with the scale house the scale replacement. And then you look at LMEG with East Washington, Pinecrest, Plaza, Bryant, South Madison included on part of that. A maintenance hangar that's coming to the airport, that'll be a 100 by 100 building that comes in 2022. We finished, moved into our police department, working on getting the old one up to snuff so that we can in turn sell that. Children's Park, the bridges were all replaced. Restrooms put at Matthews, 2 more on the way, 1 more for Matthews, 1 for Pilot. And then we demoed a lot of stuff around town in the parks and got rid of that. So, and that's just, looking at that, that's about $8-9 million worth of projects this year, and that's taken out the police department because that was a large one. But it's been a busy 2021, and 2022 is going to be bigger than this. So yeah, it's lined up very well. So,
Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey? Tyler, I appreciate you jumping on those tires, but also want to let you know that Chris Couch took the
county help too.
took the county volunteers as appointed by the courts, and they cleaned McDaniel, Breedlove, Alcovey, Hammond's Bridge. I think one more. They had 45 bags that they added to that. So
We had 4 truckloads and a trailer. So ever how that stacks out on bags? I'll say 40.
So it was a big day.
Yeah.
But you get a lot of students driving along Breedlove and Michael Etchison, Hammond's Bridge. There tends to be fast food thrown out. Students, don't do that. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Moving to public presentation of our comp plan. Sadie.
I'm going to turn it over to Marilyn Hall with Hall Consulting. She's going to walk us through the presentation of what's come in with our comp plan.
Thank you for coming.
I'm Marilyn Hall, and I am the city planner who y'all selected to do your comprehensive plan. And I am right up the road in Oconee County, which makes it really easy for me to pop in and give you updates like this one. And I'm delighted, my team and I are delighted to work for your city and to serve you guys as you develop your comprehensive plan. Tonight, I'm going to be giving you a super duper brief overview of the public engagement activities that will be surrounding the plan. I will be talking very briefly about what a comprehensive plan is. Next week, you'll see me again, and I'll be talking more about what the plan is, what it's not, and in more detail, because that will be an official public hearing that the Department of Community Affairs requires us to have. And so that'll be the big presentation where you guys learn really more about what the comprehensive plan is. Tonight, we're going to talk about community engagement and the schedule of the whole project. And I'm here to address your questions, comments, and concerns. So, first of all, what is a comprehensive plan? You can think of it as a blueprint to guide growth. Y'all are very, very busy. I didn't even realize how busy you were until the last 10 minutes of listening. And the beauty of the comprehensive plan is that it will provide you the basis to make your zoning decisions and your capital facilities decisions, and it will have the authority of robust community engagement, and it's a 20-year plan. So you'll develop a vision and strategies and policies to help get you from where you are now to where you want to be. It's required to be updated every 5 years. This is by the Department of Community Affairs. And your last update was done as 2017. And it was kind of couched within the broader county comprehensive plan. And the steering committee had 2 representatives on it from the city of Monroe. This plan is similar, but Monroe is the focus of the plan, not the county. Now, we'll pay attention to what the county's doing in the region and Atlanta and the growth and all the stuff that's happening, but the focus is on Monroe. And we're very excited to do this for y'all. This is going to be great. And it allows you to maintain your qualified local government status, which makes you eligible for state grants and loans and other statewide funding. But first, we're going to talk about community engagement. Well, that's the purpose of today. The first thing we're going to be doing is, let me rephrase that. It's not the first thing we're doing. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of different things, and we're doing 3 community workshops. We're doing a visioning workshop, strategic framework workshop, and an open house. The first is the visioning workshop, and the goal of that meeting is to develop a vision for the city. Where do you want to be in 20 years? What do you want to look like? You know, if you're on the cover of Time magazine, what do you want it to say? And I know that the University of Georgia, the Institute of Government, has already done a fantastic job with a really broad community outreach program to develop your new logo and some branding and taglines. This is not the same thing. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We are going to build upon that. And I have all the survey results, page after page after page after page after page of survey results, in addition to the summary that you guys saw. And we will be using that as the foundation for our visioning workshop. And then the next step will be the community strategic framework workshop, where we will present the vision that will have been developed during the visioning workshop, as well as some online opportunities for engagement that I'll talk about in a second. And we'll also begin discussing policies and strategies to help the community reach that vision. And finally, the third workshop will be an open house, and it'll be just that. It'll be an open house where there will be stations that represent the issues and opportunities and things that have been identified, and as well as the policies and strategies to address the issues and opportunities. There will be a member of my team at each station or a city staff person there to help answer questions and take more feedback from the citizens. This wasn't part of my plan. I didn't realize there would be a bunch of students here. Hey guys, this is your plan. Okay, this is the 20-year plan for your city in 20 years, how old are you guys gonna be? Like, in your late 30s, you'll have families? This is your chance. This is your chance to have, like, think about and make a big impact on what that plan, what your city will look like in 20 years. So you should all come to these meetings. Anyways, sorry,
No, you're
digress.
You are exactly right. The decisions we make are for 20 years from now.
Right, right. It's for them.
Right.
Tell your
guys-
teacher you
guys
should get
look
extra
smart,
credit.
You can help. All right, so there's open house. Oh, and that is also one of the final opportunities for the community to provide input before the draft final plan is sent to the Regional Commission and the Department of Community Affairs. The other community engagement and outreach, that used to be all one word. Y'all get it. Anyways, outreach opportunities and engagement strategies are a website called monroe-complan.com. And that is going to be a landing page where there will be documents, outreach opportunities. We are currently working on it, but it's going to be pretty cool where you go in and you can kind of navigate a room. It'll be interactive, and y'all will get to see it next week. And then there will be flyers that will be available starting next week. And the reason I don't have this stuff for you now is because the official kickoff is a week from tonight. It's not tonight. I'm just giving you a sneak peek preview to get you updated. Another thing we'll be doing is interviewing stakeholders, and we'll be talking to 10 or so members of the community, and this helps us get a deep dive into specific issues that have been identified and possible solutions and how they impact people here, as well as to ensure that we have a diverse representation of the community. And it's also a great opportunity to get flyers out to community leaders. In my experience, it works pretty well. And then we'll have a series of steering committees as well. I think our first one is in a week or two, a couple weeks. And public hearings, the first one is Tuesday, a week from today. The final one, which is called a transmittal hearing, is April 12th. It'll be like an official public hearing where you will approve transmitting the plan to the Regional Commission and the Department of Community Affairs for their approval. And they aren't going to be looking at the details of what you want, is they trust you. What they want to be sure is that I'm doing my job and making sure all the check boxes are checked and all the parts are there. And then there will be comment forms. Every meeting will have an opportunity to do open-ended comments from participants, and those will be online as well. And then finally, we'll be doing surveys. There'll be at least 2 surveys. The first will help us hone in on the vision, and that will go live next week. And then as we develop policies and strategies and we need more input on certain things, we'll put out more surveys. And I know that you've all already done a survey for the branding. These will look different. We have that information too. Now, this is the comprehensive plan timeline. I apologize, you folks in the back can't read this, but you guys have copies, print copies, and it's online on the agenda. This just really shows you that delivery of the final plan will be at the end of June, and that is when it is due to the Department of Community Affairs. There are 3 public workshops shown up there, as well as the hearing and the submission to the Regional Commission. Finally, these are important dates. You'll notice a lot of to be determined because we're still trying to figure out when and where exactly to have these things. But the first hearing, again, is next week right here. The first steering committee, I think, is also going to be at City Hall, and that's going to be, I guess, next Friday. And the first public workshop, mark your calendars, okay? January 13th at 6 o'clock at the factory at Walton Windmill. There will be snacks. And like I said, the rest of it's to be determined, but the months are up there. We got a workshop every month through April. And that's all I have because this was just a quick sneak peek, and I wanted you to kind of be aware of what's going on. Do you have any questions? Is this an appropriate time for that?
Yes, ma'am. Are there any questions for Ms. Hall?
I just wonder how you're going to
go about getting involvement in that public workshop? I mean, how do you incentivize people to show up and share their vision?
More than just snacks. That's where the steering committee comes in and the stakeholder interviews. We will have been doing some outreach to individuals to recruit them to help spread the word. We have an exhaustive list that's still being, I guess it's not exhaustive, but a very long list of community leaders and stakeholders, and we'll be engaging with them and hoping that they tell the people that they lead to come to these meetings and present their vision. I mean, it's really important.
I'd love to see us have a banner at each end of the entrance to the city, just advertising that. Because most everybody in Walton County drives through Monroe at some point, you know.
Maybe we
I
could
got
go
a
to the
quick
courthouse too.
question for you. You said about diversity and about 10 people picking 10 people. How do you go about picking the 10 people, and who's going to pick the 10 people?
We will be working with city administration on that. So,
If any of you have any suggestions,
yes.
send it our way. So it makes our job a little easier.
And this is for the,
Steering committee.
And stakeholder interviews.
So so the steering committee at this point is not named yet, is that correct?
Yeah, not named yet. What do you recommend? 10, 12 people? Isn't that what we?
10 to 12 people for the steering committee, and then a different group of folks for the interviews. Then
how
we have
many
one-
stakeholders are you going?
About 10, I think, for the interviews. And then we'd reach out and have one-on-one conversations with 20 to 25 leaders in the community.
So what's the difference in the people that would appoint to the steering committee versus the stakeholders? What are the characteristics of the two you're looking for then?
For the interviews, it would depend when I talk to the city on specific issues that need to be addressed. For example, an in-depth interview with the water department would be a great idea, as well as if there are any neighborhood leaders that would be relevant in the plan. Of course, that could be any neighborhood leader, right? Because the plan's relevant to everybody. So this is definitely something we still need to talk about and work out.
But again, yeah, any suggestions from you all, send them our way so that we can help formulate a really diverse coalition here. That's what we talked about in that special retreat, was reaching those who may not always be reached in our plan. So that's what we talked about in that special meeting, in the selection.
I got one more quick question for when you finish talking. You done?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
What do you define community leaders? Define community leaders for me.
When I did a project in Albany, we reached out to, there was a coalition of ministers there, so it was church leadership. There was, we definitely made a point to reach out to folks in the African-American community. We hit the church leaders, and there was some other organizations, the Boys and Girls Club there, and some other organizations, and we talked to those leaders too.
Are there
Really
any-
encourage,
Are
excuse
there
me.
any other questions for Ms. Hall?
Could I make one comment too, as y'all are thinking about people who could serve as representative for the community? The stakeholder interview would be a one-time interview. A steering committee is going to be an ongoing commitment. So also, one of the things to consider is who would be able to commit to, you see the 4 meetings and engagement over a multi-month period versus someone who could give an in-depth interview at one time. So both are really important, but it is kind of a different level of engagement.
So the stakeholders, one-time, steering committee's ongoing. Ms. Hall, do you have anything else
That's it.
for tonight? Before we go, and this is a little bit at odds with what we normally do, but since we do have a bunch of students here, do you have any input tonight? Is there anything you would like to say? Didn't mean to put you on the spot, and we'll blame it on Mr. Wilson for not being here to lead that, so tell him that we missed him. Well, thank you, and we'll see you again next week.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, yes, ma'am. Moving to committee information, Mr. Gregory with Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Thompson, would you please read the report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gregory. You have the financial status report as of October in front of you. The Finance Department has started gearing up for the year-end audit. Our auditors, Malden and Jenkins, will be here for an initial meeting on January 3rd to go over internal controls and to get the audit started for the 2021 year. And then they will be here for 2 weeks in February to do their field work. I'm gonna, if you'll look at the screens on the monitor, I'm gonna show you the transparency tool that we implemented a couple months ago. If you would, anyone that wants to view our financials or wants to view our budgets, you can go to our website, and I can't see. Got you. And my mouse is not, I'll get rid of that. If you go to our website and go to departments and the finance department, this will take you to all of our financial documents, which were here. But our transparency tool, you can click here and you can see all of our financials. And these are kind of a summary of what I put in our financial document each month. And also, when we have the public hearing later on tonight, the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget can also be found here. But if you'll click here, this is the Transparency Center. It's software is called ClearGov. Even if you go to cleargov.com, you can type in Monroe, Georgia up here. But it takes you to this site, and you can see these are the demographics that are just uploaded, and some of the summary information on the front end. You can click on revenues and expenditures. 2022 is going to be our proposed budget. But if you click on 2021, and you can do it by fund. If you do the drop-down menu, you can see general fund, our enterprise funds, our utilities, and solid waste, and then you can see all of our other funds that we have within the city. It will give you our total budgeted, and also our year-to-date collections. Keep in mind our general fund, and there's a verbiage here that lets you know that property taxes are not collected until the fourth quarter of the year. So sometimes these kind of look wonky until you see the full year, because total revenues aren't collected for the general fund until later in the year. But you can also drill down on any of these little areas that you see. You can change the way the graphs look with each chart. And then when you go down here, you can see what our taxes are. If you do a breakdown of it, you can drill down all of these. You can drill down as much as you want to. These are the total budgeted taxes and total collected to date. And then then you can go to sales and use taxes, general property taxes, business taxes. You can keep drilling down to those all the way down. So I just want to kind of give a quick overview of how the citizens can view our financials and how we're trying to be transparent as much as possible. All of these reports have always been on our website, but now you can actually view them for yourself. You can go look at previous years, and you can look at the proposed budget for the next year. So I just want to give a quick overview of that. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Beth, does that 13,472 population include the 2020 census?
No, ma'am. I think it has it on here. It's hard to see this sideways, but I think it tells you somewhere on here what year this was. But no, it doesn't. It does not show. It's not the current census, but when they do update, it will update on here when they get that information.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Thompson? Something else that's really cool about this tool that we looked at is that you can, as a citizen, you can sign up for it and you can see how much your individual taxes, how they're broken down and what they go to. So how much you're paying for each service, if that's fire or police or whatever it is. So it's interesting to see how much of your money actually goes to what, and it's another neat way to engage with what we're doing in the community. So thanks again, Beth, for rolling this out and making it easier for people to see where our money's going and what it's being used for. So that, again, if you guys have any questions or concerns, please contact any of us, and we'll have a conversation about it. Anything else? No, sir. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. That's exciting. I appreciate the work that y'all have been doing on that. Mr. Garrett, Airport.
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, sir. The month of November this year, we had the highest number of transactions and the most fuel we've sold at the airport since we started in August of 15. So, good numbers. We've been kind of trending upwards for the last couple of months. Fuel is getting more expensive, so that price is fixing to flip over probably tomorrow and go up another 20 cents. So that might slow it a little bit, but weather's also going to dictate it. And then earlier in the project list, I'd mentioned that we I had a conference call this morning about our terminal building and went over the layout and some of the specifics of it to get everything situated so we can put that out to bid towards the end of this month, maybe early January, depending on how things go, because we have to have that money essentially kind of not earmarked, but kind of in process with the DOT by 1st of April. So I should have terminal building price bids and whatnot to you sometime in March. And we will get started on that this summer, and hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed the pricing is tolerable and decent for what we were actually granted. And then we have the maintenance hangar that will be in tandem with that. Part of it will be bid out with that, just a small paving portion, but other than that, it's just a site design, and the actual developer, the owner of the facility, is going to build that and do the site grade work themselves. So, provided they are still okay from a financial standpoint with the cost of construction right now, we'll see both of those going up at the same time. Other than that, housekeeping, the end of November, our CIP for the next 5 years was submitted to the state. Based aircraft is updated and it increased for the first time since I've actually been at the city, so close to 20 years with the build of the new hangar. So that helps us with grant funding in the future. It's the number of aircraft that you can actually affect on your grounds. And then fuel tax certification that we do on a yearly basis. And that's it, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Is there any question for Chris? If not, that will be all.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Mr. Dickinson, Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Solid Waste, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Chris pretty much touched on our updates at the transfer station, and we made a lot of progress. We did, the scales got completed last week, and we are open to the public, so they can start back coming and dumping. Our odor control system is in place, ready to go. If it get a little stiff, we can kind of turn it loose so I can help things out up there. The tonnage report, we're trending down by a little over 200 tons compared to October last year. We deposited 8,000 tons in October. Curbside recycling, we're still going fairly well. We just want to still encourage the customers to use the blue bin. We're still working on, trying to get the customers to make sure what's in the container is going to be acceptable with our processor. Same thing with glass collection. We still have people are collecting glass, but we got to get it in the 18-gallon bin because it should be separated. The glass goes to College Park to strategic material, and all other recyclables goes to Lawrenceville. So we want to make sure we collect and recover the glass because we are getting paid for it at $25 a ton. And the last thing I have, the holiday route schedule for Christmas. Monday customers will be, you're on your regular schedule. Tuesday and Wednesday customers are going to be picked up on a Tuesday, December the 21st. Thursday customers are going to be picked up on Wednesday, December the 22nd. So there will not be any collection on December the 23rd and December the 24th. Also, we are going to open the transfer station up on the 23rd, so it will be open. We only be closed one day. And of course, there are New Year's holiday, there will not be a change. And of course, MLK will be later on in the year. I take any question that you might have.
God bless you on Monday, December 27th.
You're exactly right. Yeah, it will be a challenge.
All right, Mr. Still, Streets and Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Unless you have some specific questions on the report, I'm going to highlight some stuff, piggybacking off what Chris has said earlier in his report about just what all we've gotten done. Take a few minutes to brag on the guys and the great work they've done throughout this year. It seems like a good time to do so. Through LMEG and through other grants, Chris alluded to, we've paved and overlaid roughly 4 miles of center lane miles throughout the city. Doesn't seem like a lot until you ride over it, until you walk it. Look at it, and it's a pretty good bit there. Roughly 1,500 feet of sidewalk rehab stretched out over 12 different streets. That's including some intersection improvements, enhancements. Anytime we get to the end, we're mandated to do a very specific thing as far as ADA regulations, and we've done that when we've gotten to those points. Our stormwater guys, it's been a good year with those guys coming over. They've really been an addition to our department. And just an odd number for them is that throughout the year, this is up-to-date numbers, they removed over 5,000 pounds of debris from the storm grates. We talked about that a couple months ago. Those things are about 12 by 18. So you think about how much debris can pile up on one of those, and then think about 5,000 pounds of debris being on that. That's equivalent to, I think, roughly 600, just over 600 trips to various storm drains throughout the city. So keeping that stuff alleviated reduces the risk of some flooding. Another reason that can cause some of that flooding, which we've seen this year, is leaves. We're in the middle of another chaotic leaf season, and this number's mind-blowing to me. Up to date, minus today's numbers, 432,000 pounds of leaves have been collected in 2021. That's astronomical to me. Some of those are wet, most of them are dry. 432,000 pounds of leaves. Over 1,200 tons of asphalt has been used just in utility cuts. Utility cuts alone, whether it's be a water service or some type of emergency break or something like that, and a 4x4 cut, which is a pretty average size of a utility cut, that takes about 500 pounds of asphalt. Over 1,200 pounds of asphalt's been used just on utility cuts alone. All these events that make Monroe downtown what it is, the parades, the festivals, anything that goes on the weekend, our guys have spent over 500 hours out of regular service to make those events happen. Whether it be at the airport, whether it be in the parks, whether it be what we do on a day-to-day basis, or whether we do a special event or something like that. Our guys drive amber lights. A lot of times our amber lights don't get recognized enough. But when the call comes in, those guys answer. They don't get recognized a lot for being on the scene when they are, but if you ask any public works official, we're there as early as everybody and later than anybody else before we leave. So I just wanted to take a minute to brag on those guys. Great group, as good as I've ever been a part of. So we do a lot of stuff that gets seen, a lot that doesn't get seen. So I wanted to take a few minutes to brag on the stuff that doesn't get seen as much as that. So as far as the report, I'll be glad to take any questions when it comes to that.
Jeremiah and Danny, you two, speaking of special events, we don't ever hear about you unless something goes wrong. And we don't hear about
Folks
you.
are complaining about leaves, we're in good shape.
And we don't hear about you very much. And that speaks volumes. Y'all have done a bang-up job this year, and my entire term, y'all have just been awesome, and thank you.
Thank you.
And after the parade, oh my goodness, the next morning, It was amazing after, I know, I can't imagine how much litter you picked up just overnight, but
Pretty good.
it looked awesome.
And taking that into consideration, just the last three events, the car show, the fall festival, and the parade, I'm guessing, Sadie, correct me if I'm wrong, 60,000 people total between those three events. I don't know that we have had the cell phone numbers come in yet for the parade, but it was huge. And it literally looked like there'd not been an event the night before at each one of those, so thank you.
All right, the next item is discussion and approval of the 2022 LMEG application. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. What this is it's our annual resurfacing program, state funded. We have a 30% match. The funding comes from SPLOST. This year, due to a major water line project that's gone out to the new shopping center, the bulk of our project list is going to repave, mill and repave, and overlay what was messed up during that time period. We put a pretty good patching in there that's going to get us through the spring or to the summer whenever we would get into the paving portion of that. And then there's been 2 additional streets out in the subdivision off of Emmons Bridge that will make up the remainder of that list. But for the LMEG 22 project list will include West Marable Street, Nile Way, Irving Street, Green Street, Perry Street. Those streets will all have deep patching done, a 1.5 inch milling, and overlay and striping. Lopez Lane and Tigers Way will have deep patching and overlay done. So that's roughly about 1.5 miles. And like I said, again, this will be state funded for the bulk of it. We have a 30% match. Our funds will come from SPLOST. I'll be glad to take any questions on that. And again, we will contract out the milling. We'll contract out the striping. We'll do the deep patching in-house, and everything goes according to plan. The county will continue to pave the overlay portion of the project.
And for clarification, the total amount's to $28,116.23. Our 30% match is $52,642.21.
Yes, sir.
So that's a committee item. We need a motion to approve.
Move to approve the 2022.
Motion by Mr. Little. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion by the committee? Hearing none, I call the question. All in favor state aye. Aye. Mr. Mayor, that passes. That goes to the consent agenda next week.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Moving to Mr. Little, please. Utilities.
Thank you, Mayor. The electric and telecom report, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Little. I want to use this time to go over some of our large projects for the year. One that everybody's seeing every day is the Pavilion project, and I'll touch on that first. That project started with us in about February of last year, and we've put in over 35,000 feet of conduit for electric and telecom, pulled 27,500 feet of underground electric cables. We've put in 15 feet through cabinets, 12 transformers, which are very valuable right now, 120 elbows, multiple standoffs and lightning arresters. And we pulled over 1 mile of 336 overhead wiring there. Grand total of hours of labor hours up there, not counting me or Mr. Holbrooks, is about 4,300 man hours spent up there. Everything's working. Everything's on time for us. We are the only telecommunications company on site, amazingly. I figured Comcast and Windstream would be in there by now, but they're not. And so we are providing service to every building that is close to getting a CO at this point. We will be providing service to the rest of them. Hopefully the tenants will choose us in the end. But it's been, it's nice for the guys to get up there and get all that done in that amount of time that we've used. It is the biggest project I've ever done in my 30-something years here. And it's been challenging. It's a lot of moving pieces, but that project is coming to the end, and I'm glad to see it. And as Logan said, our next project that's very visible is coming up. We've set the first ductile iron self-supporting pole for the town green. You'll see that on Madison Avenue, just north of Church Street. There will be another one just south of the project, right there in front of the, the workplace, the axe throwing place.
Co-work at the Metro.
There'll be another one there. There will be one replacing that pole that has the guy wire at Amici's. And then there will be one on Church Street, just sort of east of there. Those will be the termination points for the overhead wire. Everything around that square will go underground. If you ride up and down Madison, you'll see our electric contractor is reconducting all that down through there. He's having, as everybody in the electric industry right now, having some labor issues, keeping people on the job, but he's moving safely forward after a couple of incidents start. We got that put to bed. All right, on our telecom projects, we put in 175,000 feet of conduit. Now, unless you're in one of the subdivisions that's got that conduit put in the ground, you haven't even seen us. 185,000 feet of underground fiber has been pulled into those subdivisions. Over 1,000 pull boxes and pedestals. Those are becoming harder to get. We may start reusing our cable TV pedestals that are existing in these subdivisions. Most of the ones we're doing now, we're removing when we get done with the project, we'll be removing that pedestal, the old pedestal. But the pull boxes you can't even make an order to 2023 from that company. So we transferred to a pedestal. Now the pedestals are getting harder to get, but the good thing is we do have existing pedestals in those subdivisions that we can continue to run pipe. One thing we have been successful at is conduit. We've cut a deal with the conduit manufacturer, and they're continuing to keep us as of now in conduit. We've added another contractor putting in, and we've sort of picked up our capacity by about a quarter. We'll continue to put that in the ground. We normally lose 3 to 4 transformers a year to just damage, car wreck, whatever. Lost 7 past couple of months. That time frame on those transformers is not any better. So we're working with every supplier we can work with. I'm working with people in South Dakota and Pennsylvania, and my guys are coming up with some good ideas of how to work around these issues, but that's not going to be fixed quickly.
Brian, do we have a minimum of the single-phase transformers that we must?
I normally like to have 10 on the 25 kVA, which is the normal couple of house transformer, down to 5 or 6 right now. We used another one yesterday.
But we're not using them for projects. Those are for
We're not using them for anything, unless if we worked with, if you look at just talk about one project, the storage buildings up on Mayfield, that normally would have been fed underground. We worked with the developer and said, look, if you want power within the next 18 months, you're going to have to go overhead. He had no problem with it. We have those transformers right now. Working with another storage building up north of town, they're probably going to go that same route. But that's even becoming a problem with that number of those transformers. We're going to have to start pulling that back. And when we get to the minimum, it's going to be when you come in with your project, we order your material, and when your material shows up, we do your project. That's the only fair way I know to. I can't not have a transformer for someone's home that's existing.
Right. And I'm sorry, the other question. You're putting in the conduit for fiber. Are we blowing the fiber to?
Yep. Blowing it into these pedestals and pull boxes.
So as soon as the conduit's run, the fiber's blown, all we have to do is.
We've got a 10 gig AdTrend box that's probably sitting on a boat off of Los Angeles. It's supposed to be here in late October, and I don't know where it is.
And then we connect each individual house.
We start connecting those houses up. We start splicing in that fiber and going to work on that. But the one thing, like I'm telling y'all every month, we can get conduit and we can get labor to put the conduit in the ground, so we're going to continue to put that in the ground. That's the hardest part anyway. One thing I didn't mention, we're one of 3 organizations in the nation using Corning. Corning's the largest fiber manufacturer in the world. They picked us to use their what's called their FlexNap, which is our overhead product design tool. We've already done about 150,000 feet of GPS located for that, and they're working that through their project right now. This should save us multi-hundred thousands of dollars in design costs, which we can turn around and put back into some of these higher cost materials we're buying.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any other questions for Brian? If not, Mr. Middlebrooks, water, sewer, and gas?
Thank you, Mr. Little. Couple of updates on some, our large projects. The Highway 186 gas, all the mains installed now. The only thing we have left is the 800-foot road, not a road bore, but a river bore, there at Jacks Creek. We also have the meter guys building the meter set for E.R. Snell. We feel pretty comfortable we're gonna be able to serve those, or serve that business there. We're also installing, began yesterday, a 49-foot stretch on Thurston Snow Road. So we'll probably have that one finished next week sometime. The Jacks Creek wastewater plant rehab is moving very, very slow. Having some labor issues, keeping those guys on the job. So Carl was in town this week, or last week, I'm sorry, and hopefully that's about to be addressed. The 30-inch raw water line, most of that, those permits are in now, so we're getting ready to, that'll go out for bid first of the year. The process of getting some easements now. And then our, probably our most important project, the Monroe-Loganville water line, we are now serving them water on a daily basis. We began last week, so that is up and running. And one last thing, we had our 2002 CDBG kickoff last week. That's going to be sewer 2022, I'm sorry, what did I say? Oh, I'm sorry, in 2022. We're going to replace sewer along Glen Iris, a section of Bryan, a section of Stowers, and a section on Edwards. And if you got any questions on any of the other stuff, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those. We're averaging right now about 1.15, I think.
Thank you, Rod. That's the dedication of the Grand Haven Sewer Pump Station. Are you, who's going to
I'll
address
just can. Rodney probably has more history on it than I do, but
It's
drafted it up for you.
yeah, it's just a dedication of the sewer pump station. It was actually installed back in 06, 07, and the subdivision died, and now it's back up and going, almost finished. So they're just dedicating, our ownership, I guess, basically does. Something we typically take over at the end of a development anyway.
Are we making any maintenance charges
Yes.
for our pump stations?
Yes, any subdivision that has a pump station, they're charged $5 a month per utility bill.
Does that apply to this?
And I believe that the developer had to put in a new pump in that, or he had to do some repairs, didn't it?
Well, there was some, when it was brought back to life, there was a few things that had to be done, yeah.
I was thinking
Bring it
that
up to
was,
spec,
But nothing
yeah.
major.
Yeah.
so it's not like, I mean, hopefully we're taking over one in
It's
in
all
good
operating.
condition.
Yeah, it's in good condition.
It's just a formality that we have to go through here, so.
After so many lots.
Yeah, so basically, it's in phase 2. It's essentially coming to a conclusion now, being built out. So I've got the plat before you and the proposed quitclaim deed as attached.
Is there a motion that we accept the Grand Haven Sewer Pump Station?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Larry Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We recommend that to full council. Thank you, Rodney. Mayor, that's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Bradley, Public Safety.
Yeah, we'll start with the fire department, with Chief Dykes.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. You have the statistics for the month of October in front of you. We had a total of 217 incidents, 5 of those being fires. If you look on your incident distribution map, you'll see that we continue to have, as predicted, pretty widespread coverage throughout the city, and then some heavy call volume in our heavily traveled areas on the west end of town, which has not changed. One thing I added this month, had several folks ask, what has the impact of COVID been on the department? And through our national incident reporting software, they put in a special study this past year, and so I actually pulled those numbers and added that to the report. For the month of October, 5 of our 217 incidents involved folks with confirmed or suspected cases of COVID for 2.3%. But for the entire year, so far, 4.8% of all of our calls for service of any kind. This is not just rescue or medical calls, this is all of our calls. So roughly 5% of every call, roughly 5% of our calls have involved someone that has been COVID positive or that we expect to be COVID positive. So that has, I realize that's not a huge number, but when you factor in that every time our folks are going out on any type of medical call, they're taking the same precautions to treat these people as if they do have it in order to keep themselves safe and healthy enough to continue to come to work. I just thought that was interesting, and I will continue to follow up on that. And you can see that we, very moderate fire loss. This was October statistics, and so I did want to touch real quick. We had a very significant fire this past month at Hitachi, and just before the meeting started, I received an email that right now they're predicting that we saved $19 million between the building, the materials, manufacturing, that as a package. And that's, we had a lot of help from Walton Fire on that too, but that is a tremendous impact on this community in a positive manner for something that could have been a very, very negative impact. Talking about Walton, we just completed live fire training last night. Last night was our third night of doing joint live fire training operations at our training facility at Jacks Creek. We're also in the process, we're down to only a few hydrants left. We paired up with Rodney's crew this year so that we had both fire and water authority personnel conducting annual hydrant flow testing. So that has gone well. And we did have a incident occur yesterday. We had a weld break on our 20-year-old ladder truck. So right now that truck is out of service. I have service technicians coming on Thursday to give us a prognosis on what the case is. I was on the phone with Walton's chief yesterday. They're covering us with their ladder truck. So service delivery is going to remain the same, but we may have some unplanned upcoming costs for repair. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have for.
Chief, on that last issue, just for clarity, so I understand you correctly, if we need a ladder truck, Walton County will provide it promptly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They will be on a structure fire right now because of our automatic aid agreement. They're already sending it. So service delivery will not be affected from that aspect, other than the ladder truck will not be responding from the middle of town at the moment.
Any other questions for Chief Dykes?
Just want to follow up, the client who sent you the letter, I'm sure was Mike Schoon from Hitachi?
No, it was actually from one of their risk management folks.
Okay. He asked me to express that same thanks to you yesterday. Just could not have been more pleased with the whole team and your professionalism, and saved them from losing any time of productivity. Frankly, they are 100% back up within 48 hours, and that was all you. So thank you.
Those are people. Thank you. I'll pass that along.
You collectively.
Okay, let's move to the police.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. You have our numbers before you as well. As you can see, our 2021 numbers for calls for service are actually down from our 2020 numbers, and our area checks are up. But as I was looking at this, from January to October, our total calls for service that our officers responded to was 17,445, and our total area checks that we had conducted was 87,984 up until October. So we're looking at end of the year for calls of service around 20,000, and area checks probably close to around 105,000 for the year. Our Part A crimes are up a little bit, which is something that's you typically see this time of year around October, November, December. This is when our thefts pick up during the holiday season. So, you know, we ask everybody to please be vigilant in securing their vehicles, their homes, keep well-lit areas, and encourage people to install video camera systems if they can afford to do so to help out with that. October, which is what we're highlighting here, was also when we do our annual remembrance of Lieutenant Michael Edgerton, who is the only law enforcement officer that's ever been killed in the line of duty for the city of Monroe. And so we annually go out there every year and put a wreath on the grave with his former wife, Miss Robbie Vaughn. We hosted on October 20th the GSCP District 9 meeting, which was very honorable on our end to be able to have 50-plus chief of police come to our city, to our department, as we discussed the issues and trends and topics that relate to law enforcement. That's also a great networking for us as well. On October 25th, we hosted the Youth Leadership Walton. Mayor, you participated in that when we were able to speak with the children and actually did a tour of the police department and also did a canine demo for them. I believe all of them want to be canine officers now. So on the 27th, we spoke to the third graders over here at George Walton at City Hall. And on the 31st, we did the Rivers of Mercy trunk or treat with the church there, Ava Atkinson and Officer Joey Holliday. And I wanted to also note this, which was pretty interesting to me. You know, every month I tell you how many weapons we usually get off the street, and usually in a 30-day time frame, we take about 6 weapons. From October 15th to November 18th, our officers took a total of 16 firearms off the street here in the city of Monroe, and I think that's pretty phenomenal. These men and women are doing a phenomenal job for us here for the city, and I can't thank them enough. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you should have any.
Any questions from Chief Watts?
Not related to public safety, but related to you. Your wife, Kelly Watts, was just chosen as the star teacher for George Walton from the star student, Mac Joffrey, who's in the third row back here. So congratulations.
He's a great kid too, by the way, Mayor. Now, all these kids they're great kids for George Walton here today.
All right, go back to the fire department just for a moment, because I just remembered, I think tomorrow's Tribune's got an article about our fire department, our chief, and things that they do through the holidays, so we appreciate the representation that Chief Tice gives us for the media also. Thank you. That's all we have, John.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Ms. Malcolm, Planning and Code.
Yes. Mr. Kelly, would you present?
Thank you, Ms.
your
Malcolm.
report, please?
Out of the report you have in front of you for the time period of October, just some of the highlights from that. We had 154 code inspections done in that time frame. Wrote 81 permits. We had 5 new businesses established, 8 closed. Major projects ongoing at that time was Monroe Pavilion still, which is soon to be closing out, but we are trying to temper some expectations and have everyone understand that the dates they're setting right now are tentative, depending on what they can get done and how they can get it completed. The city marshals removed 66 signs from the roadway. They wrote 264 repair cleanup orders and did re-inspections. They investigated 2 tampering cases on which they issued 9 citations, and they represented the city in the municipal court and had 8 hours of post-training during that time frame. They also have attached their record of the repair cleanup notices and actions that they've followed up on. Historic Preservation approved 5 COAs. Planning Commission approved 3, and the rest of the actions that they took at that time you've already acted upon last month in November. If you have any questions about the balance of the report, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Do any of you have questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Mr. Bradley, Economic Development.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Crosby, would you mind sharing that with us, please, ma'am?
I'd be happy to. Well, we made it through our bicentennial celebration and Christmas parade week, so congratulations to all the departments that helped make that possible. You'll have some photos there from recent events. Our Farm to Table event was very successful. It looks to have raised around $10,000 for the farmers market. That's how we fund that market, and that's how it sustains its operation. Christmas parade, the numbers from our reporting on smartphone on devices, there were 18,059 devices in town on December 2nd. So that's all day. So and that's just people who had phones. So that's a lot. So congratulations on being able to do that without any children being lost or hurt. I mean, that's a miracle every year that we pull that off. So congratulations and thank you for all that. We other thing to update you is the Historic Resource Survey is underway, and there is a page on our website that kind of gives an overview of that. They are the company that's doing that, WLA Studio out of Athens. They have team members that are in the field conducting the survey in a part of the city. This is phase one. We'll have to do it over multiple years to survey all of the resources that we have to, because everything older than 82 is considered historic. So that's a lot of our properties. So that is underway, and we'll also be working with a team of UGA students and grad students that'll be surveying a part of our existing districts along Church Street as well. So that's underway. That's that website there if you need to know more about it. Upcoming events, we have our two more candlelight shopping evenings on Thursdays, and then we're into next year as far as events go. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Ms. Crosby? No doubt it's been an awesome season of celebration, so I'm thankful to you and Leanne for spearheading that, and then obviously all the other hard work. So that's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Did we want to show the new brand
If you,
here?
it was on the comp plan, but I don't.
You missed it. Big reveal.
Well, I knew there was one here, so I just didn't know.
We're gonna hang it out front one day this week, so.
Great. Thank you. Moving to parks. Motion.
Yeah, sorry to buzzkill the logo. But yeah, we'll get it up on front of City Hall. The couple of updates on parks, is, I think it was Logan that had mentioned we had our groundbreaking on the town green with bids and construction plan for 2022. That was a fun event. Childress Park, bridges are all repaired. Same at Matthews too. We repaired that bridge that was on the far side. We had our lake study back in October. We are still waiting on results from that, so they can send us a map, send us a plan going forward of how to reestablish kind of a quality fishing lake pond there at Matthews. And then we are still waiting on pavilion build and restrooms. We expect them to be sometime in January when the weather is absolutely perfect for that type of activity. So that'll probably delay it for another month or two, but everything should be up and going, and we should see a lot of progress come spring of 2022. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
How long will we leave the lights up in Childress Park?
We just start taking them down usually shortly after Christmas and the New Year. So it'll usually takes us about 2 weeks, give or take, depending on what the weather does for us.
I just wondered if we could leave them up through January 1.
Yeah, they typically are, just because of that being holiday week, and that's a little bit hard on staff.
And the lights on downtown trees stay up through
March?
through February.
February. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Moving to items of discussion, the public hearing rezone and annexation at 1167 Gulfview Terrace and 0 Oakland Ridge. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant, Patricia Goga, in case you don't recognize that name, Marshall Goga's mom, is applying for a rezone and annexation for an adjacent lot to where their house is located in order to bring it into the city pursuant to combining those properties into a single parcel.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Patrick?
Mr. Mayor, just so you all know, I actually went over there, that's in my district, and I went over there and saw the property and saw the building and everything they're trying to do, and it's a nice little area, and their neighbors are all good. The way that it works is that it's an odd subdivision because one street's out and the other street's in, but it's all one piece of property if you've never been there. And so it's not some crazy annexation. It's literally just we're on this side and there's an imaginary line that crosses through between these pieces of property, and so they're just connecting the two, and I think it's a good thing.
And if we could get that whole neighborhood to annex in, would welcome it, because it simplified things, because actually it ends at some point on some streets, and it's also in and out across the other street. So it's kind of crazy getting in and out of there for service delivery. Anyhow, the planning commission recommended approval, and so does staff.
Thank you, gentlemen. Moving to the public hearing of the Monroe Corridor Commission Appeal at 1000 East Spring Street. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an appeal of a decision by the Corridor Commission to deny a COA for the erection of a metal building on that parcel.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Kelly? Hearing none, we'll move to the public hearing of the comprehensive plan. And this shows our logo.
And this will be, the presentation will be different next week.
Are there any questions or comments for Sadie? Look forward to that next week. Moving to the COA demolition appeal of 1238 South Madison Avenue, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir. Again, this is an appeal of the decision of the HPC to deny demolition on that property. They had two homes on that same application, and one was approved for demolition, which faces on Cape Street. This one faces on South Madison Avenue, and it was denied.
And this was the one that was tabled last month.
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any questions for Patrick about that? Moving to the conditional use at 611 Davis Street. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you again. Conditional use request at 611 Davis Street to expand the Monroe Country Day School. Schools are conditional use in R1 and R2 zoning, so they're applying for that conditional use approval. Staff recommends approval, so has planning and zoning.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Patrick? Hearing none, moving to preliminary plat review for River Point. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. This is the preliminary plat that was tabled in October, coming back before you for consideration. They've made the corrections that we've recommended on there, and we originally recommended approval, but you'll be hearing that again on next Tuesday.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Patrick? Coming back to you with the preliminary plat review at 318 Alcovey Street, Veterans Walk.
Yes, sir. This is a longstanding project coming before you for preliminary plat approval, similar to the one we just discussed. It's located at 318 Alcovey Street. It's a Veterans Walk. Staff recommends approval of preliminary plat, subject to the two corrections listed in the staff report.
That's exciting to see that get some legs.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, just for the record, that is an entity which I'm the controlling owner, and so my office is conflicted, won't be able to provide any legal advice on that. Should council need any legal advice, then it'd be incumbent upon City Administrator Mr. Probst to retain conflict counsel on that.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Moving to preliminary plat review at 0 Charlotte Royale Boulevard at the Monroe Pavilion, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir. This is a housekeeping step, actually, that we need to get taken care of. Preliminary plat, similar to the ones we've already discussed. Recommendation by staff and planning and zoning is for approval.
Okay, are there any questions?
And with the corrections pending.
Sorry to interrupt. Are there any questions for Patrick? Coming back to you with the application for beer and wine package sales at Food Mart Monroe.
Yes, sir. That application is in order and will be heard next Tuesday as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Patrick on that? Same thing at Publix, beer and wine package sale application, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Exactly the same thing. The application is in order and it'll be before you next Tuesday.
Okay. I think that's it for you tonight. Moving to the appointments of the Downtown Development Authority, Convention and Visitors Bureau Authority, and the Urban Redevelopment Agency. Currently, we have 3 seats available on the DDA, CVB, and URA boards. Meredith Malcolm, Chris Collin, and Charles Sanders' terms will expire December 31st. Ms. Malcolm and Mr. Collin have confirmed that they would like to be reappointed for another 3-year term. Mr. Sanders will be stepping down, and we do thank him for his decades of service to the city. He expires at the end of the year. Mr. Ross Bradley has applied to fill the position that will be left vacant by Mr. Sanders. And we have these 3 appointments on next week's agenda. Moving to the second reading of the zoning ordinance code text amendment number 12. We'll have the second reading of that for next week's council meeting as well. The 2022 budget resolution. Ms. Thompson, to discuss for approval.
Actually, this was just for the public hearing for this week. This is a public hearing for the 2022 fiscal year budget, and the adoption and the resolution will be next week. I'll go ahead and give a brief overview. This is for the 2022 capital and operating budget. The citywide proposed operating budget is $70,114,593. This is an increase of 7.4% over the current year budget. Of the major funds, the general fund portion is $15,487,244. The combined utilities fund portion is $45,105,673, and the solid waste fund is $6,177,924. The citywide proposed capital budget for fiscal year 2022 is $27,044,756. General fund capital projects total $5,059,232, with $761,380 funded by general fund revenue. $4,297,852 is funded by SPLOS and grants. The utility bond proceeds will fund $12,950,000 of the total $21,468,524 in the utility fund capital projects. Solid waste fund capital projects total $517,000. A total of 9 additional positions citywide are added in the 2022 budget after unfunding 8 positions in 2021 in order to decrease overall expenses due to the COVID pandemic. The only rate increase anticipated next year is the commercial solid waste garbage fees, which will increase 3%.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. The way we did that was a little wonky. For discussion items, this will be on the agenda for next week as the budget resolution. We'll come to the public hearing in just a minute. I have 2 more items for discussion. First, moving to the resolution of the Northeast Georgia Regional Solid Waste Management Plan. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, this is a plan the General Assembly, Georgia General Assembly requires to, as amended in the Solid Waste Management Act, and it's a 10-year solid waste management plan over 10 counties in the North Georgia region. 47 municipalities. We are included in the Walton County plan, and pretty much the purpose is to make sure during the growth process in the next 10 years that we have a plan in place to handle all solid waste in the next 10 years. And we do have an assurance letter from Republic Services. In the next 10 years, they do have enough capacity, landfill capacity in the next 10 years, and one other emphasis is on waste reduction. They are asking us to reduce by 25%. And I take any question that you might have.
Thank you. They're asking us to reduce waste by 25%?
That is a goal under DCA over the last 20 years. That was a target, and that's part of the reporting, summary reporting over the last years. We've been right at 10%. So that's been a target goal to reduce by 25%.
Gotcha.
Because we don't know the next 10 years, even though we do have life expectancy in the landfill, that could change. So you want to make sure you have some reduction in case that happens.
Are there any questions for Danny?
Do we just do that through recycling programs and that sort of thing, or is there?
Yeah, curbside programs and getting businesses to to do more. So over the next year, we'll be doing that. Try to encourage more recycling on a commercial level.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
And litter does not count as a reduction.
Due to the adoption of the 2022 council meeting schedule, Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. We're looking to change things up a little bit for 2022, try to be a little bit more efficient in our meeting schedules. So what we're going to do is I'm proposing to you one regular monthly meeting per month. That'll be the second Tuesday of the month per the charter. What we'll do is reserve the first Tuesday of each month for items of magnitude. So we'll still have our committees, and if we need to call a committee meeting for the first Tuesday of the month, just like we're doing now, it can be a little bit more specific for each issue. I don't expect that we'll do it every month, but I think we'll have several months where that is a necessity, whether it be one or two or more committees that will meet. The committee members will still be appointed by the mayor each year as per the charter, and we'll have a little bit different agenda format to try to streamline things. All of the council will get to discuss and vote on the items before them during the regular meeting, so it won't just be passed through small committees. And hopefully this will lead to a little bit less confusion amongst not only how we do our business on these agendas like we are tonight, but also to the public, because, making the sausage is often a hard thing to watch up here and really understand how everything flows, especially when we get into our public hearings and all of that matter. So hopefully this will streamline it, be a little bit smoother process, and will allow actually for a little bit more discussion amongst you all in our decision-making process.
Thank you, Mr. Probst. Are there any questions for Logan?
If I can just,
Move approval of the new schedule as presented by Mr. Probst.
Do we adopt that tonight, or we just discuss?
no,
We just,
it'll come for you for next week. But just to tagline onto that, I know that y'all love hearing all my legalese, but our office is working on an ordinance that will come before you to help in this whole overview so that y'all aren't here till late in the evening. Y'all have we have a very unique charter that requires my loudmouth reading all of these ordinances. We're drafting an ordinance for your consideration that we'll bring before you in January and February that will allow the waiving of the formality of reading the ordinances automatically. And if any member wants to make a motion that the entirety of the ordinance be read, then almost kind of, if you will, a little bit like a congressional filibuster, then it can be read, but that will help you on the streamlining. All of the ordinances will still be published, they'll still be online, they'll still be available for your consideration, of course, for the public's, but it'll also help a little bit. I do have a long one that I'm going to read for you tonight, but coming to you in January and February, you'll have an ordinance before you that you may consider that will allow us to circumvent one unique element of our charter without having to amend the charter, that just allows the actual reading of it to go away and maybe speed things up a little bit for you. Just wanted to give y'all a heads up on that.
thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any other questions?
I just would like to say that, I'm going to vote for this with a little bit of reservation, in the sense that I don't want us to lose the idea that we're being as transparent as we can to the public. And I want to challenge the staff to those that, to communicate with your chairmans of the committees that they serve on during the month. Many of you do that. I think we can do a better job on important issues that are going to come before us at that meeting, so that that department chair is well aware of that particular item or items. I think that's very important.
I agree, and one of the concerns you may recall from our individual meetings that most of you attended, we chose to go this route because the consent agenda is always confusing. That when we come in and we approve a consent agenda from the week before's work session that a lot of folks may not have attended, that I don't want anybody to ever think we're slipping something by them. So exact same point. We just want to be as transparent as possible. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll revisit that next week. Items for action, public hearing, Beth, for the 2022 budget. You don't have to redo all those numbers again, but are there any questions for Ms. Thompson? Hearing none, I'll declare this portion of the meeting open for the purpose of public input. Would anyone like to speak in favor of the 2022 budget? Hearing none, is there anyone who'd like to speak against the 2022 budget? Okay, I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed, and we will revisit that, easy for me to say, in just a couple of minutes. Moving to the resolution of the temporary moratorium of residential development outside of the city core. Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. This comes on the heels of what we've been discussing for a few months of how do we maybe pump the brakes a little bit so that we can get ahead in our various aspects of planning, whether it be on the utility side or whether it be with our comprehensive plan or just our general city planning. But what we've done is carefully craft a moratorium here before you for residential plat approvals. Essentially, this is a 6-month moratorium. Keep in mind, this is very temporary as we continue to tighten up how we do our business here, ensuring that we have the available services to provide to any foreseeable developments and homes that are put in the city. But basically, it's crafting it in a way that keeps some growth and some new housing stock going during this time, primarily in this general city core, which you see the attached map thereof. That's the gist of it. I'd be happy to take any questions before Mr. Rosenthal dives into the reading of it.
Are there any questions for Logan?
I just have one question, and I support the intent of what this moratorium does. I'm a little bit, well, I guess the question is, I know that on the periphery of the city, if you will, this would prevent any new subdivisions going in and things like that. But if someone lives in, or someone has a lot, you know, outside this inner city core that they're hoping to build a house on, will they still be able to do that?
Yes, sir, because what we're aiming at is what we call or classify as major subdivisions, more than 5 residential lots.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that, wanted to be sure it was
Yes, sir.
out in the open.
Yes, it's only for major subdivisions which are 5 or more than 5, 5 or less. It does provide staff with a sort of stopgap measure to if sort of 8 minor subdivision applications are submitted back to back to back in an effort to subvert the intent of this ordinance, of this resolution, or this moratorium. The intent is to prevent the receiving of any preliminary plat applications outside of the city core from now until June 30th, until your comp plan can be updated, some of these other infrastructure issues can be addressed. But minor subdivisions are exempted from this. Much in the same way they're already exempted in your development regs from approval by you guys. Those can be signed off directly by staff, et cetera.
Thank you.
I just wanted that publicly to be acknowledged.
Are there any other questions for Logan or Paul? Hearing none, would you like to read in one breath?
I'd be happy to. This is a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Monroe, Georgia, to impose a temporary moratorium on the acceptance of applications for preliminary plat approval for residential development purposes outside the city core of the city until such time as the city can review and approve an updated comprehensive plan for the city. Whereas the City of Monroe has been vested with substantial power to regulate the use of property within the city for the purposes of maintaining the health, moral, safety, security, peace, and general welfare of the city, and whereas the city has the legislative power to adopt reasonable resolutions and regulations relating to property within the city for which no provision has been made by general law and which are not inconsistent with the Constitution of the state of Georgia or any charter provision applicable thereto. And whereas local governments may impose temporary moratoria on zoning decisions, building permits, and other development approvals for the purpose of city planning and implementation of new city regulations and ordinances. And whereas the mayor and city council, as a part of its planning, building, zoning, and growth management efforts, have been in review of the city's current comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances and studying the city's estimates and projections regarding the anticipated type of residential development and growth patterns outside the central business district, the downtown development boundaries, the LCI study area boundaries, and the urban redevelopment agency boundaries. Said areas being more particularly described and shown on Exhibit A attached here to and known hereinafter collectively as the city core. And whereas the central business district of the city provides for economic growth and well-being for the city and the city core, and whereas the downtown development authority boundaries for the city provides for commercial and residential growth for the city and the city core, and whereas the LCI study area of the city provides for infill, walkability, and sustainability for the city and the city core, and whereas the urban redevelopment agency boundaries of the city provides for redevelopment, mixed housing, and revitalization for the city and the city core, and whereas the mayor and city council have employed consultants for the purpose of reviewing the city's current comprehensive plan, as well as updating and providing a new comprehensive plan for the city to the mayor and city council for review, revision, and approval by the city. And whereas the mayor and city council anticipate that the new comprehensive plan for the city will be provided to the city on or before June 22nd, 2022, whereas the mayor and city council, as part of the planning, zoning, and growth management efforts and strategy for the city, have called for continued city staff review and overview of the city's resources, including traffic patterns, water delivery infrastructure systems, sanitary sewer capacity and infrastructure systems, natural gas capacity, and projections regarding the future of residential use developments outside the city core. And whereas the mayor and city council, by virtue of city staff review and public concern, are aware of a variety of traffic pattern and congestion issues currently existing within the city. And whereas the mayor and city council are aware of certain water and sewer capacity issues, including but not limited to reasonable uniform water pressure throughout the city, water delivery infrastructure system issues, sanitary sewer system capacity issues, and sanitary sewer infrastructure system issues that the city may avoid by implementation of a temporary moratorium as contemplated by this resolution. And whereas the mayor and city council are aware of a variety of supply chain issues and shortages that exist throughout the country, which have affected the city's current ability to provide utilities and services commensurate with the rate of residential growth outside of the city core. And whereas continued residential development outside the city core without further review and update of the city's comprehensive plan will cause further resource strain on the city and may affect the general well-being and health of the citizens of the city. And whereas continued residential development outside the city core will likely require more of the city's finite resources than would similarly situated residential developments located within the city core. And whereas the mayor and city council do not intend to frustrate vested interests that have been already established with property owners and applicants as a result of pending applications for preliminary plat approval of residential developments outside the city core as of the date of this resolution. And whereas the mayor and city council believe that additional preliminary plat approvals regarding additional currently non-existing applications for residential developments located outside the city core involving the subdivision of 6 or more residential lots, hereinafter being referred to as residential major subdivisions, will create additional resource strain, increase traffic congestion, discourage pedestrian walking throughout the city, and such developments will not follow the contemplated future updated comprehensive plan for the city. And whereas residential developments outside the city core will impact the city's resources and city services, such as water, sewer, traffic, and public safety, in a disproportionate level as compared to other forms and zonings of residential development located within the city core. And whereas the mayor and city council are concerned about the health and well-being of the citizens of the city that could be negatively impacted by continued uncontrolled residential development outside the city core. And whereas the mayor and city council hold a strong interest in growth management so as to promote the traditional police power goals of health, safety, morals, aesthetics, and the general welfare of the city, and in particular, lessening of congestion of city streets, security of the public from dangers, promotion of health and general welfare, protection of the aesthetic qualities of the city, and facilitation of the adequate provision of transportation and other public services and utility requirements. And whereas the mayor and city council hold a strong belief in maintaining public objectives of aesthetics, conservation of value of existing lands and buildings within the city, making the most appropriate use of land and other resources, enhancing and protecting the economic well-being of the community, facilitating adequate provisions of public services, and preserving resources of the city. And whereas the mayor and city council hold a strong belief in developing a cohesive, coherent policy regarding residential land use in the city and intend to promote community development through stable, balanced growth for the prosperity of the city as a whole, whereas the mayor and city council are directing city staff to study the current mix of housing, make projections on the future mix of housing and growth patterns and impacts of the same, and to make recommendations as to the contemplated comprehensive plan for the city. And whereas the mayor and city council have determined that it is in the best interest of the city for the protection of the health and public safety, that there be implemented a temporary moratorium on the submission and acceptance of applications for preliminary plat approval for residential major subdivisions lying outside the city core for a sufficient and reasonable time to allow for an in-depth review and update to the city's comprehensive future land use plan and development requirements related specifically to residential development outside the city core. And whereas a temporary moratorium on the acceptance of applications for preliminary plat approval for residential major subdivisions outside the city core is a proper police power while the above referenced studies and plan updates by the city and city staff are performed. Now therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and city council of Monroe do hereby declare and adopt a moratorium on the submission and acceptance of applications for preliminary plat approval for residential major subdivisions located outside the city core as follows. Number one, the preamble of this resolution shall be considered to be and is hereby incorporated by reference as if fully set out herein. Number two, no applications for preliminary plat approval shall be accepted by city staff for residential major subdivisions located outside the city core from this date forward through and including June 30th, 2022. Number three, no applications for preliminary plat approval shall be accepted by city staff for multiple residential minor subdivisions as defined by the development regs for the city of Monroe adopted July 6, 1999 as amended, located outside the city core, which in the opinion of city staff, based upon the congruency, proximity, the intended development of the property, and other determining factors, reasonably resembles a residential major subdivision in form. Number four, this moratorium shall have no impact on any pending preliminary plat approval applications for residential major subdivisions located outside the city core that have previously been submitted to city staff and are pending approval by the city at the time of the adoption of this resolution. Number five, during the term of this moratorium, the city staff shall study the current mix of housing, make projections on the future mix of housing and proper growth patterns and impacts of the same on the city's resources, and make recommendations as to the contemplated and updated comprehensive plan for the city to further the city's interests in growth management so as to promote the traditional police power goals of health, safety, morals, aesthetics, and the general welfare of the city. Number six, this moratorium shall become effective upon its adoption. So resolved this 7th day of December, Mayor. That is the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions for Paul or Logan? Would you like him to read it again? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Move to approve.
A motion by Ms. Malcolm to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll give that one to Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the mayor's update, three things. One, thank you, George Walton, for coming tonight. Always expect the best, and I appreciate you again. We missed Mr. Wilson this week. Next week, we'll be entertaining Coach Reach in Monroe area, celebrating their region championship. We will have their chorus here to sing at the beginning of the evening, and look forward to that. They are fantastic. They sang at the groundbreaking for the Downtown Green. And finally, Tyler, we're hoping you're here next week, but Lauren's due on the 18th, so we're praying for you, buddy. Congratulations.
Thanks,
we're thinking of you. I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Bradley. Is there a second? Mr. Ross Bradley, I'm sorry. Second by Ms. Malcolm. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Good night, everybody. Thank you.